So, what if you could give your AI an open book exam for literally any question you ask it? Seriously, think about that. Instead of just relying on whatever it crammed into its memory months ago, it could look up the answer right then and there. Well, that powerful idea is a real technique called RAG. And honestly, it's changing everything about how we use AI. Let's get into it.
We have all been there, right? You ask your AI assistant a pretty simple question, and it gives you this answer that sounds super plausible, but it's completely, totally wrong. It's a huge problem, and it's exactly what we're going to solve today.
And this just perfectly illustrates the two worlds of AI we're talking about. Over on the left, you've got an AI that's forced to guess, pulling an answer from its old, dusty memory. This is what we call a hallucination. But on the right, it's been given access to the company's latest HR manual. The result isn't a guess, it's a fact with a source. This is the simple but really profound shift that we're talking about.
Okay, so why does this even happen in the first place? Well, it all comes down to the basic limits of standard large language models, or LLMs. You know, their knowledge is massive, for sure, but it is not infinite, and their memory has some really specific, really critical blind spots.
Here are the two main culprits right here. First off, an LLM's knowledge is basically frozen in time. If it was trained on data up to, say, August 1st, it knows absolutely nothing about what happened on August 2nd. And second, and this is a huge one for businesses, it has zero access to your private, internal data. It's completely blind to your company's world.
And this is what leads to what we call hallucination. You know, I love this analogy from the source material. The AI doesn't want to look dumb. So when it doesn't know the answer for sure, it just makes one up. It will confidently generate a response that sounds authoritative, even if it has absolutely no basis in reality.
So, how do we fix this, right? How do we stop the AI from just guessing and get it to give us the actual facts? Well, the answer is a really powerful and surprisingly elegant technique called RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation, and what it is, essentially, is a process that gives the LLM a lifeline. Before it even tries to answer your question, it first connects to an external, up-to-date knowledge base to pull the relevant facts. It's like giving it cheat sheets.
And this is the most important part right here. RAG forces the model to look outside of its own static memory. It stops relying on what it thinks it knows, and instead relies on what it can find in a trusted, authoritative source that you provide. Okay, so this sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? Well, the whole process has two key phases. The first one is all about the setup, building that external brain or knowledge base for the AI. Let's take a look at how that data gets ingested.
This whole thing is called the data ingestion pipeline. First, you just feed it all of your documents, PDFs, web pages, internal reports, the whole shebang. The system then breaks all this information down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Then comes the really clever part. A different model converts the meaning of that text into numbers, a format we call a vector. And then all those vectors get organized in a special database, creating this amazing searchable library of knowledge for your AI.
All right. Now for the really cool part. Once that knowledge base is built, what actually happens when a user asks a question? This is where the magic of RAG happens, all in real time.
So check out this flow. When you ask a question, your question also gets turned into one of those vectors. The system then shoots that into the database and looks for text chunks with the most similar meaning. This retrieved info is what we call context. And finally, this context gets bundled up with your original question and sent to the LLM with a simple instruction, hey, use only this information to answer the question.
And this is what makes the name itself so brilliant. Retrieval, finding the relevant information from your database. Augmentation, beefing up the original prompt with that new context. And generation, creating the final, accurate answer based only on the facts you provided. Retrieval-Augmented Generation. It makes perfect sense now, right?
Look, this is way more than just a clever technical trick. RAG is fundamentally changing how companies are building and using AI. So let's look at why it's become so, well, indispensable.
And the impact is just staggering. According to industry reports, something like 65% of enterprise AI projects are now built using RAG. This isn't some niche experimental technique. It is quickly becoming the absolute standard for any organization that needs AI it can actually rely on. And it's pretty easy to see why. RAG dramatically cuts down on those hallucinations, it lets you use your own private and current data, and crucially, it lets you avoid the incredibly expensive and time-consuming process of retraining an entire model every time your information changes. The result is just an AI that's more relevant, more accurate, and way more trustworthy.
So I'll leave you with this thought. We now have a way to give AI a perfect, instantly updatable memory. What becomes possible when our AI tools finally stop guessing and instead become the most knowledgeable experts on any subject we give them? The potential is truly immense. Thanks for tuning into this explainer.